Hello everyone, I'm Miss Trish and I'm one of the RE teachers for UU St. Petersburg, and I'm here with the lesson for the 22nd of November 2020. And this is the fourth part, or lesson D, in our theme for the month, which is, what does it mean to be a people of healing? And this lesson is entitled, Heal by Telling the Truth of Thanksgiving. So let's light the chalice and get started with the lesson. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Each month, we are dedicating one session to a different aspect of the work of decentering whiteness. Our weekly themes guide us to focus on specific aspects. When it comes to healing, so many brave and wise voices have lifted up the importance of telling the true history of Thanksgiving. This search for the true history is reflected in our fourth principle, free and responsible for truth and meaning, and our eighth principle, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community, which we accomplish by using our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Our faith has taken up the work and called white UUs to be especially vigilant about the work of correcting stories that have caused harm. So what's one of the ways our faith guides us into becoming a people of healing? It says, learn and tell the true history. So I have something in the treasure box to help us talk about this. These are craft store feathers, and they're dyed and they're pretty, they're fun to play with, and children used to be encouraged to choose Indian names and to stick feathers in their hair to play Indian. For a while, feather headdresses were a fashion item. Now more people know that it's racist and demeaning to make fun of a tradition or to use it to sell stuff. Playing Indian simplifies and often ends up making fun of Indigenous peoples. This is called cultural appropriation. Imagine if people took something your family feels is important and made it into a game or used it to sell stuff, like clothing. Indigenous people have been part of the marginalized people subjected to the pain of racism. They are subjected to a variety of myths, including being extinct and not living in modern times. Feather headdresses are another part of the stereotype of all Indigenous people, when really headdresses belonged only to honored warriors who are part of the Plains Indigenous culture. Now that doesn't mean that we can't admire the beauty of feather headdresses or learn more about Indigenous people. That's called cultural appreciation. One way to learn more about our collective history, especially at this time of year, is to learn the true story of Thanksgiving. The traditional story that we all learned in elementary school is one of the myths about Indigenous people. And November is a good time to seek out the true story of Thanksgiving. Storytelling has the power to heal, according to leaders and science, and it's a good way to help heal the trauma experienced when people are subjected to the pain of racism. So, find out the true story of Thanksgiving and leave the Pilgrims and Indians story behind. All cultures celebrate a time of giving thanks, of gratitude expressed. Thanksgiving can also be a time of healing through the true story. So, what is a respectful way to call Indigenous people? A good rule of thumb is when referring to natives, use the term Native Americans, Indigenous, First Nation, or by using the specific name of the tribe of the people. And that will gain you some extra ally points. And just let natives call each other Indian. What really happened in the first Thanksgiving? Here's the Wampanoag side of the tale. This is from a reposted 11/23/12 Indian Country Today MediaNetwork.com. Thanks to Gail Corey Toensing. The following account is of an interview with Ramona Peters. Ramona Peters was the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, and she said it was really Abraham Lincoln who used the theme of the Pilgrims and Indians eating happily together. He was trying to calm things down during the Civil War when people were divided. It was a nice unity story. When the interviewer asked her what really happened, she answered, "We made a treaty. The leader of our nation at the time, Yellowfeather, his title was Alsomi Quinn, hard for me to say, made a treaty with John Carver. He was also called Massasoit, which is a little easier for me to pronounce. So he met with John Carver, the first governor of the Pilgrim colony at Plymouth, and they had already elected an official, these Pilgrims, while they were still on the boat. And they had a charter, which was their plan of how they were going to go forward. They were still under the jurisdiction of the King of England, or so they said at the time. So they couldn't make a treaty for a boatload of people. So they made a treaty between two nations, England and the Wampanoag Nation. It basically said that we'd let them be there and we would protect them against any enemy, and they would protect us from any of our enemies. A little aside from the story. In 2011, the United States minted a commemorative coin, which is a scene of a handshake of the treaty agreement made back in 1621 between the Wampanoag tribe and the Pilgrims of the Plymouth colony. So if you're not sure about a commemorative coin, here's one. This one is one that commemorated our bicentennial for the United States. This one was minted in 1976, and it commemorated the 1776 founding of our country. Here's another commemorative coin I had on hand. This is a Sacagawea coin, and it's a quarter. So now back to the story. So Ramona Peters continued by saying, it basically said, I'll watch your back and you watch mine in the agreement. Later on, we collaborated on jurisdictions, creating a system that we could live together. The interviewer then asked, what's the Mashpee version of the 1621 meal? You've probably heard the story of how Squanto, not his real name by the way, Squanto assisted in planting of corn. This was their first successful harvest, and they were celebrating the harvest and planning a day of their own Thanksgiving. It's kind of like when some Arab nations do when they celebrate by shooting guns in the air. So this is what was going on over there at Plymouth. They were shooting guns and cannons as a celebration, which alerted us because we didn't know what they were shooting at. So Massasoit, their leader, gathered up some 90 warriors and showed up at Plymouth prepared to engage. If that was what was going on, if they were taking any of our people, like taking hostage or kidnapping, they didn't know, and it was a fact-finding mission. When we arrived, it was explained through a translator that they were celebrating the harvest. So we decided to stay and make sure that was true, because we'd seen in other landings, like Captain John Smith, and even the Vikings had been there, and a lot of times they took prisoners and they took them back to different places and sold them as slaves. Back to the interview. So we wanted to make sure so we decided we'd camp nearby for a few days. During those few days, the men went out to hunt and gather food: duck, deer, geese, and fish. There were 90 men here, and at the time, I think there were 23 survivors of that boat, the Mayflower. So you can imagine the fear. You have armed natives who are camping nearby, and they, the colonists, were always vulnerable to this new land, new creatures, new trees. There were no such trees in England at the time. People forget that they had just landed here, and this coastline looked very different from how it looks now. And their culture, new foods, they were afraid to eat a lot of things. So they were very vulnerable, and we did protect them, not just support them. We protected them. You can see throughout their journal that they were always very nervous. Unfortunately, when they were nervous, they were also aggressive, and that means they were ready to fight at the drop of a hat. Well, to put it this way, this is Ramona's dialogue again. People did eat together, but it's not the way it's portrayed in most of the Thanksgiving scenes that we were taught in elementary school. It was our homeland and our territory, and we walked all through their villages all the time. The difference in how they behaved, how they ate, how they prepared things was a lot for both cultures to work with each other. But in those days, it was sort of like today when you go out on a boat in open sea and you see another boat and everyone's waving to each other, very friendly. It's because they're vulnerable and they need to rely on each other if something happens. In those days, the English really needed really needed to rely on us, and yes, they were polite as they could be, but they regarded us as savages nonetheless. The interviewer asked, "So did you eat together?" And Ramona said, "Sometimes, but not at that legendary meal. No, we were there for days." And this is another thing. We give thanks more than once a year in formal ceremonies for very different reasons. For green corn Thanksgiving, for the arrival of certain fish species, whales, for the first snow, for our New Year in May. There's so many ceremonies. I think most cultures have similar traditions. It's not a foreign concept to think that human beings who recognize a greater spirit than they would have to say thank you in some formal ways. And that's the end of the interview. There's a lot more to that interview, and we'll post the link in the newsletter if you want to read the whole thing. Or if you want to Google it, it's entitled Reposted from Indian Country Today Media Network.com. And it's the 11/23/12 version. For now, though, if you have someone there to talk to about this story, you can pause the video and you can share your ideas about what was the lesson of this story. And when you're done either thinking about it to yourself or sharing with each other, then you can start the video again and you'll be joined by Miss Jinan for the rest of the lesson. For now, I'm going to say Namaste. The spirit in me sees the spirit in you. I love you all, and I look forward to being with you again soon. Thank you, and bye for now.
I invite you to move into our meditation position. Sit comfortably in your chair or on the floor. Put your hands on your lap or on your knees. Sit up nice and tall and focus your eyes in front of you. Find your breath breathing in your body by taking one breath in through your nose and slowly breathing it out of your mouth.
All right, now kids, I want you guys to pretend that your head is a hard shell that wants to be tapped. So place your hands above your head and use your fingers to gently tap the crown of your head. Say the mantra, tapping once, tapping twice, tapping chicken soup with rice. Tapping once, tapping twice, tapping chicken soup with rice. Breathe deeply and pause. Next, say the mantra in a few key areas that prove efficient for reducing stress and healing. After each tap, say the mantra, tapping once, tapping twice, tapping chicken soup with rice. Breathe deeply and tap the top of your head. Tap the top of your head. Tap your eyebrows beneath the collarbone, the center of your chest bone. And move back up. If you have somebody else do this, it kind of feel like they're tickling you, right? So you guys go ahead and try that. Parents, I want you guys to take a moment to make some chicken soup together, you know? We have stone soup coming up, of course, or it's already passed, one of the two, but make a soup together. Actually, have your kids in the kitchen with you. Of course, be safe when cutting those vegetables up with the kiddos, but cut up some carrots, cut up some onion, throw in a chicken bouillon, some jasmine rice, throw in a whole chicken, some celery, some red cabbage, potatoes, noodles, whatever you can come up with, and put it all in this wonderful soup. And speak love into this soup as you're making it. And just envision love going into your vessel as you're eating it, and enjoy it, and allow it to penetrate all cells of your being, to exude and to reverberate healing, because that's what this month is all about. This month is about healing. We've gone through so much over the span of the last, I want to say, almost a year. 2020 came in and like kicked us all, and we're still trying to figure out how in the world is school getting implemented, you know? So fix that soup with your kids. Make it. Speak love into it. Indulge and enjoy it, and allow it to fill your vessel, your body, your space with love. I send my love to you all. I miss you guys so much. I believe this is the last lesson for the month, so we're going to move into our December month. December is a whole nother thing, so there'll be another video touching that. I hope you guys enjoyed this month. If you need to go back and check out some of the lessons that you possibly have missed, our lessons are available on youtube.com/UUSTPETE, and just go under the K through 12 lessons, and you can view all the lessons that we have recorded since the beginning of quarantine. So, you guys, once again, there's a siren out in the background. I think it's time for me to go. Have a great, great, great Sunday, and I miss you guys so much. You guys take care. Bye. All right, thank you so much. Once again, my name is Jinan Johnson. I am going to close off this lesson today. Parents, be sure to check out that RE Weekly newsletter. There are some take home and some games and such that you guys can play with each other, some discussion points that would be great for car rides, dinner, on talking over the table. There's so many different things that's available in the RE Weekly newsletter. Also, if you check out the Instagram page, there are resources available there at UUSTPRE on Instagram, and then we're also on Twitter. So, without further ado, I'm going to close this lesson up with us. Now, what I would like for you guys to do is take the time to make soup. Make that soup. I'll see you guys next week. I'll talk to you later. Bye.